We've been off the air for about 6 weeks. So Lucy and I just sort of worked out what a lovely way to kick us in for returning for this.
Welcome to season 4.
Who knows?
Picking a number out of the hat.
Who even knows what season? Welcome to Tanked Up. It's episode 436. We're a podcast about craft beer and video games. I've forgotten how this works. I'm Ben. I'm here with Lucy.
Hi.
And Aadil.
Hey!
We're gonna drink some beers. We're gonna talk about some video games. Hopefully, you've retained us in your podcast feeds. Is that a thing anymore? People just use Spotify. People just watch these things on YouTube now. Likely, RSS seems an old fragment of the past.
Don't say it. No.
So I think
I use it.
I started to go back to
old
RSS.
people use it.
But I mean, because places like people are now getting their information off of things like Substack.
Sure.
Those are all individual things you have to visit unless you put them in a reader.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if, obviously not the general public, but like RSS usage will increase a bit in the face of, I mean, even the shit like I went on Facebook out of boredom earlier today, and I was reading the comments on some teaching philosophy post, because those are the groups I'm in, because I'm Mr. Excitement. And then I looked away, went on my phone or something, came back, and it had refreshed. And so I lost whatever I was looking at, because the timeline doesn't stay static because they refresh it.
Right.
Oh, really?
And because it's all algo driven, you can't just scroll down till the thing
to find it again, right?
Because all of the stuff it generates is on the fly. It's like, oh, this is terrible. And I like being in touch with, mostly it's the like pedagogy and the AI stuff and some dumb meme. But today I was like, even though I've cut down my social media, I still have to like grab the phone and like check it impulse. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking of doing a detox because I don't really use it to even inform people of shit anymore. And I've noticed I've started to share like political posts and stuff again. But that's just because I'm using social media more. But also, it's not. There are some studies. Obviously, they're not like there's not enough data, but like it does feed your I feel like I've done something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It ticks a box somewhere.
Yeah, and if I want to actually get detailed information, so some like reels and stuff have caused me to look things up.
Sure. That's
useful, but not most of them. And a lot of time, like I'm just as guilty as everyone else, even though I care a lot and try and teach people about sourcing and critical thinking. It's just easy to be like, I trust this source, they're saying this thing. And then 3 weeks later, you find out this person's secretly a red-pilled shill or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, that's not how, like...
I find a lot at the moment, especially on something like Instagram, is just people trying to sell you shit. So, Kim uses it a lot to look at sort of mental health stuff for the kids. And a lot of that and a lot of what we're sort of looking at is this is how I do this and this is how we've been talking about stuff with my kids, and they'll give you like half the answer, and at the end they're like, come and sign up for 12 months of my subscription course, and it's just like, fuck off.
Master classes from life coaches is a thing that I've gotten a bunch of, and it's like, at no point do you clearly say what your like credential is, and I'm not saying everyone has to get a standard credential, but you can be saying things that sounds plausible, that lines up with what I know about mental health, but I'm not an expert, so I can't tell if you are doing the thing shrewdly.
Absolutely.
Even like not maliciously, but just like I have interpreted these things. I don't know if I haven't done the due diligence, but I'm going to tell you it like it's a fact.
There does seem to be quite
I just
a lot
look
of
at cat videos.
Oh, I do that too.
Talking about.
Funny animal videos are still very high on my watch list.
That is all my algorithm, and I intentionally make it that way. sometimes every now and then, when other people send you their memes, your algorithm gets skewed to whatever they like. So it's like every now and then I do a little cleanse and just watch about 10 cat videos in a row.
Just
and
to make
that's
sure,
all it feeds to me.
Nice. Good.
Sorry, just before we move on, I noticed an interesting thing about how adaptive they've made the algorithms, which I think is a bad thing because when the algorithms were rough and coarse, they were kind of useful. Like Spotify was good when it was bad, if that makes sense. Because they think that their fine grain is accurate when it's not.
Yeah.
But I noticed I hadn't spoken to a certain one of my friends in a while because they were one of my main feeds of cat videos, and so my Instagram stopped sending me cat videos. I'm like, oh, that's weird. And then I thought about it. I'm like, oh, right, because usually I get a surge of cat videos once they share a thing. Oh, it's been a couple months. I'll check in.
Nice. A good reminder, at least.
Oh, yeah.
Where are my cat videos? Oh, I haven't spoken to this person. Not that I've forgotten to speak to this
It was a very weird, very fucking modern day realization. But also, who knows how long that'll be the case because, of course, you can't even rely on there's no reliability of interpreting algorithm results, right?
Absolutely.
Someone's going to complain about what happens to Lucy, and they're going to change the algorithm. And so, if you click through a link from a message, it'll stop influencing your feed as much. And then I won't have. Then I'll think I haven't talked to that person in 2 months, and it's been 2 days. Anyway,
let's open beers.
You were trying to
beers. I really want a beer, so I'm going to open this one. I'm going to kick us off. I am going to drink one half of like a duo beer. So I've got a beer from Beak, and it's a collaboration with Floc. It's called Threads 4, and it's a 6.5% IPA. It's a nice little hand pulling the thread on the can. There is a little bit of flavor text. So a pillowy soft citra and crush hopped IPA created with the lovely folk at Floc as part of a project to create 2 singular but complementary IPAs designed to be coalesced in the same glass. Enjoy on its own or for the full 5D experience, blend with Floc's Threads 3, showcasing late harvest, Nelson Sauvin and super aromatic mosaic. I do not have the other beer.
One.
The place I bought this from doesn't sell beers from Floc, so they obviously didn't get them in. So I'm just going to have...
really funny.
Yeah, so I'm just going to have this one. I think they probably went, we'll buy beers from Beak. Here's one. That.
Yeah. That's some serious undersight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would have been like, I mean, when I saw the beer and I saw it's Beak and Floc, I'm like, yeah, I'll grab that. Absolutely. And then when I'm stood there and I'm like, what other beer shall I get? And I looked at this to see what it was. I'm like, oh, is the other one? No, it's not here. And it does say on the back.
But that's got to be pretty friggin' common, right?
I would think so. Yeah.
But like, why wouldn't you guys swap stock and then sell?
Absolutely. You buy a box and you get 6 of each or 12 of each.
No, but also like, as in like, yes, it would have a cost to it, but like the Beak, presumably Beak made one of them in their brewery and Floc made the other one in theirs.
You'd think so.
And so they give them to their standard suppliers, but like you do a swap and you say, if you want, so instead of getting a case of all this one, you get a case that's half and half.
Yep.
Too many logistics, too many accounting.
Yeah.
Lucy, what are you drinking this evening?
I have a surplus of alcohol-free beers still, so we're going back into that well.
That's impressive. Wait, do you only drink these?
Left. Recently, yeah. Because
that wasn't a criticism. That makes sense.
Yeah, just because like either I'll just have water or a fully strength beer. Otherwise, but I have been looking forward to having this one because it's from Left-Handed Giant.
Nice.
Called Run Free, alcohol-free IPA, 0.5%. Inspired by the spirit and ethos of our Left-Handed Giant Run Club. Oh, interesting. We have brewed an alcohol-free IPA to ensure that everyone always feels included and no one is left behind. Here we've translated the texture and aroma of our IPA range down to less than 0.5%, with layers of citra and mosaic that burst with citrus and pine. effortlessly refreshing and delightfully smooth.
Lovely.
Uh,
Nice.
Okay.
I've seen it. Seen it in the shop, but I haven't picked it up.
Let's see how it is.
Perfect. Aadil, what are you drinking?
I've got something that's actually quite potentially special for me, which is our friends over at Vault City have made the Crunch, the chocolate and honeycomb imperial stout.
Nice.
Now, I like
Sounds nice.
Bristol Beer Factory, New Bristol Brewery. New Bristol Brewery makes the honeycomb cinder. Yeah, though for whatever reason, since I first moved to Bristol, those two breweries I always invert in some way, shape, or form. But the interesting thing is this Crunch used to be, well, Crunchy was one of my favorite, like, bog standard can get in a convenience store chocolate bars. It's covered in milk chocolate.
Yep.
I can't have it. This is vegan.
Nice.
Well, the only way for me to have a Crunchy is a 15% beer.
Brilliant.
What a shame. What a shame.
Yeah. I mean, it has to happen. So yeah, I'm excited.
When are you going to become the brand ambassador for Vault City? If you're not already.
I think you overestimate the number of people who tune into this lovely podcast.
You've been spreading the good word. I'm sure it's getting out there.
Yes, absolutely. I've seen a big spike in sales in the last.
I would say Durham is a great place for it because, like, the two more keg-based craft brewery pubs both carry it regularly. One of which there's always at least one Vault City on tap at the Holy Grail, and often there's a second. And then Ben over the Hop Knocker always has tins, a wide selection of tins, and sometimes has it on tap. And his place is much smaller. Yeah, and then there's a place in the marketplace I always forget exists, but they also often have it.
Nice.
Turns out, availability and location proximity are still a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we'll move on to the beers. So, like, the Beak in the Floc. It's good. It's a lovely, lovely, solid colour. A bit more orangey on camera than it comes across. But lovely nose. Big fruity flavour. But a little bit of, like a little bit of sweetness in there. But also, I forget how we do this now. How do we do this? How do you tell what flavours are in beers? There's this almost touch of dankness. Not much, but it's a touch of sort of sour sort of finish to it in there. But on the nose, which is nice, you're getting a lot from that. Ooh, flavour-wise, that's really soft. That's lovely. Like there's a... What is that?
That is a hallmark of, like, Beak beers. They are just very soft.
Yeah, absolutely.
Glowy.
And I don't get the opportunity to try many beers from Floc. I only maybe had a couple, maybe last year, maybe even a bit before that potentially. So I don't have anything to pull to mind about kind of what their beers are like. But this is a little bit sweet when you start. It does have that touch of sourness to it. But it's almost a bit like, I don't know, they say sort of Citra and Crush. It's almost a bit of a berry kind of sweetness. It's almost like a strawberry kind of flavour in there. And it's quite strong. It's quite the prominent sort of flavour kind of coming through. It's backed up by maybe a little bit of mango. There's a kind of a bit of lime cutting through this as the zesty sort of element, which kind of pulls in that slightly... the sweet turns into not a sour note, but it does just drop a little bit and become maybe something that's a bit more ripe, perhaps. But it's lovely. I don't think I've had this flavour combination before, really, with that like very, very bright and sort of sweet kind of berry flavour, very, very much kind of that kind of red berry sort of flavour, whether it's a sort of strawberry, you could edge it into raspberry, maybe. I can't quite tell the two in a beer, but yeah, this is lovely. It would be incredibly interesting to see what the other beer tastes like, and then the combination of the two beers and how they work together. But I'm not sad I don't have that, because this is very, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Lucy.
Yeah.
Left-handed giant.
It's very clear. Sort of got it sort of looks like, well, apart from the carbonation, it sort of looks like from concentrate apple juice. Didn't pour with a lot of head. Very thin head, but even smells a bit appley.
Right.
But it's got that unmistakable kind of artificial sweet smell that a lot of these alcohol-free beers have.
Mm-hmm.
I always wonder what that is. What it technically is. But yeah, it's got a bit of that. Slightly metallic almost. That weird sweetness. That some of these beers have, but it doesn't smell that bad. You getting a bit of citrus on there as well. To say a bit of apple.
Nice.
Or maybe a bit of pear, more pine fruits than like the tropical fruit. Maybe a bit of stone fruit in there as well. A bit of peach. That's maltier than I would have expected.
Okay.
Yeah, it sort of tastes like gosh, what spirit am I thinking of? Obviously without the alcohol. Sort of like maybe even like a red wine kind of like.
Ooh.
Like earthy quality to it, that's very strange. Yeah, it's got that is really weird. Yeah, it's got like a port like earthy and oaky kind of undertone to it that I really cannot place.
Really?
That's really bizarre. Don't know if it's because it's been in the back of the fridge for 6 months, but yeah, that's weird. And I mean, there's barely any carbonation there. I think it needs some more of that. I mean, this is like a beer that you're having after you've had a run. I think if it was a bit more refreshing, that would be nicer. But it's got kind of as I say, very malt forward backbone to it. That's got that kind of earthy undertones to it, which is not what I would have expected. It's got a bit of fruit in the taste as well. As I say, it's probably less those tropical fruits and a bit more apple and pear.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a strange one. I will say that that kind of artificial sweetness is not as prominent actually tasting it as it is in the smell. But no, I mean there's nothing offensive about it. It's not the best alcohol-free beer that I've had. Certainly isn't. But yeah, it's a weird one. I'll try and dissect that a bit more because I'm trying to think of what flavors that is. But the best thing I can think of is like the oaky taste of I don't know, like a wine, a red wine or a port or something like that. It's very weird. Not expecting that.
Okay. We'll come back to it.
Weird, but not in an offensive way. Just not what I expect from an IPA. Yeah.
See how it sits, and we'll come back to it. Or just butt in if it starts. If you suddenly think about it. Aadil, the crunch
Yeah. So Vault City's crunch 15%. It looks kind of like an Icor in this lighting. Icker. So on the pour, I got the waft of the toffee and chocolate. But mostly the sweetness coming off it was the booziness. I think in a beer like this, it'd be very hard to hide the 15%. The nose is actually quite light. I'm getting a bit of like cacao almost, not just chocolatiness. And then, like I said, it's a meld of that like toffee sweetness and the alcohol sweetness. So but it's quite like not a strong nose. Like you have to quite, if you just like had it here and we're talking, you might not even notice it was there. It's not wafty.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can say it's 15%. I can just the viscosity of that beer coating my tongue.
Just like oil.
Yeah, maybe it was an icker. It was oil, I should have been saying. Interesting. So the malts and the oh, sorry. I think my palate has to get a bit used to it.
Mm-hmm.
The initial taste was like, oh, it tastes kind of like a burnt in that like slightly acrid way a darker beer can be, but that doesn't really fit the crunch model. And I was about to say, oh, it's kind of burnt tasting. And that's more of burnt toffee rather than honeycomb. But the taste after that was very much a sort of honeycomby, toffee-y taste. And so I'm wondering if I just need to let the initial taste of the beer hit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could launch into just chats for a bit and come back to this in sort of like 10, 15 minutes or something.
Yeah, I'll probably butt in later, but right now I'll say it's very tasty.
Mm-hmm.
It's very rich. It kind of smells boozier than it tastes. Like
sure.
The actual taste meld is quite good. So I don't really, it doesn't taste boozy because I think the chocolatey, honeycomby sweetness is very well melded to the presumably very strong alcohol sweetness.
Yes.
And I'm getting, so I think actually, I hate to say this, I think it doesn't taste like crunch because the chocolatey notes are too pure chocolate, and it needs to be garbage milk powder Cadbury chocolate. And there's no lactose. Thank you, guys. Don't make this taste more like the thing, even though that's what you do. I appreciate you didn't. And I think what I'm curious about is at the Everyman in Bristol, they made homemade like crunch balls. So they were like honeycomb coated in like rich chocolate, and you could get the milk or not milk because Bristol, and those are very good. And I'm curious if once I get used to sort of the more acrid sort of background taste, once that taste goes to the background, whether this will taste like those, like the bespoke, fancy, bougie crunch, because of the lack of lactose. No, you can't say lactose. That's just lactose. Lactose. Sorry, my brain just went on a little trip there, out loud. But yeah, I will say even with the acridity, to be honest, it tastes more like a beer than I expected. Because the biggest complaint I've really had about Vault City beers is there's almost no beeriness, and this immediately tasted like a dark beer, and that's why I was hesitant to be like, oh, it's acrid and blah. It was mostly surprise. It tastes like a beer. It tastes, at this point, it's less sweet forward than say like the Cinder Toffee, whatever the New Bristol Brewery ones. Although I haven't had them in a minute. Which is good because that also pulls away from the central beer taste. Yeah. So either it's just a really good tasting beer with crunch slash honeycomb. That's the word I keep losing. Honeycomb notes with some like strong cacao and regular chocolatey notes. Or my palate's going to get used to some part of that and it's going to taste more like the crunch thing. But I wouldn't be sad if it just stayed tasting like a strong beer with honeycomb and chocolatey notes.
Yeah.
Like I would recommend this without knowing the provenance. I'd be like, this is a good beer. It's just oddly more like all the other breweries would do a thing called crunch than what Vault City would. I guess that's where I keep struggling to articulate, but let's just forget who it's from. All the articulation sounds like a good beer, tastes like a good beer.
Nice.
I think they have like, is there like a salted caramel one or something like that that's recently come out?
Oh, probably.
I saw, can't remember. Yeah, probably. That sounds like the flavor of like 10 of their different beers. Just to put in on this one, it sort of tastes like a rosé. There's something definitely vinous in quality in it, but it's got that sweetness that you'd have from like a rosé rather than like a deeper red.
Interesting.
So, it is. Obviously, I'm not really a fan of rosé, but yeah, it's alright.
Yeah. See how it sits as you get through it. Let's move on then and talk about some video games. As we kicked off the show, it's been quite a while since we've recorded last, but I don't feel like I've played that many games, really. I've only got maybe a couple to talk about, and one was, the big hit of the moment, Blueprints, which we haven't had a chance to sort of discuss yet. And then only really one other game that I've kind of played in like 6 weeks. I've had I did get a code for Revenge of the Savage Planet, and I've just been sort of plugging away at it. I'm maybe only like 6 or 7 hours in, but that's been like 2 weeks. So it's just like
the first one.
Yeah,
it's on Game Pass. So I was like, should I fire it up? But realistically, if it's over 2 hours long, it's not going to hold me.
Because you played the first one, didn't you, Lucy?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah, even the humor, I enjoyed.
Yeah, I think this retains a lot of that. It is very humorous, maybe a little bit too far occasionally with some of the bits, but it's changed perspective. So I think the first game was first person. This is third person, and they very much pushed for like a couch or online co-op experience as well. You can have a second character jump in, but I think it's probably very similar to the original game in that you are a character thrust onto a world to try and make a habitat or make it habitable for people. The art style is incredibly colourful. It pops all the time. Very tonal in terms of sort of the biomes that you visit and those kinds of things. But again, you've got a gun, you've got a whip, you've got a few other items and devices to be able to manipulate the world. In so much that it's almost like a Metroidvania, that they've locked off a few areas until you have upgraded or you've found an item. So at the moment, I'm bouncing between planets a lot because you start off on one planet and actually get the ability to move between several planets within the system, and that presents in and of itself, I suppose, a difference to the first game, but not really, because ultimately each of those planets is its own kind of biome. And all you're doing is moving, rather than moving through a map and getting to another place, you're just jumping in a cannon. And now the teleporters that I've unlocked, sort of various ones on each of these, but you're just being dropped into quite a concise map for some of these planets. It works quite well. In the first planet is very spread out. You've got several different areas in it. You can explore maybe the first 3 until you get to one where there's too much gas and you would need to upgrade your suit system to be able to go into that. There's some underwater elements, but you can't dive until you found that kind of module for your suit and stuff. So there's a big upgrade system in this. And actually, as a single player game, it works quite well because it signposts stuff nicely. It has you kind of just going to do the next thing. You have to go and find this creature and either defeat it or capture it. There's an element of capturing animals in here to research them to get more upgrades and those kinds of things as well. But each of the creatures has a specific way that you can kind of capture it. So you might have to find a weak point on it, shoot that a couple of times so it's dizzied, or hit it with a different weapon to make it sort of dizzy and then be able to kind of capture it and stuff. So it's very familiar gameplay. There's tons of stuff in this which are not necessarily pulled out of other games, but very familiar to me. lots of scanning of the environment, scanning flora and fauna to understand these sorts of things. Or incredibly similar to sort of No Man's Sky in that sort of sense. The aesthetic and moving through space also pulls on No Man's Sky, that kind of a little bit as well. But it's kind of just a third person run and gun experience as well, when you're sort of shooting or moving between different kinds of weapons, and you have a few combat encounters with a few sort of harder enemies and stuff as you move across the planets and things. But it's a fun time. Like I'm enjoying it. It's really easy to put on when the kids are around because it's all very comical and cartoony. In sort of what the enemies, when they get dizzy, literally drop down and have things spinning around their head to tell you. And sort of when they die, there's a comical death animation rather than loads of blood and stuff everywhere. And I mean, there is blood, but a lot of it is green instead of being kind of red and stuff. So yeah, lots of sort of comical and fun animations to a lot of this as well, which as I say, has been very easy to have on with the kids in the room.
And the different worlds, it doesn't feel like too disjointed. It still feels like a cohesive experience, not like
it does, because it's what it's kind of doing is it's setting you up in that sort of Metroidvania style. Whereas if you were on like one big map, if it's a 2D game and you're on a big map, you might go, I've got an area here which is like the mountains, and then I've got an area here which is the town or the graveyard or whatever, and you can access this bit of it currently, but you can't then access this bit down here. So you experience the biome, you then go off somewhere else and do something else to get an item to come kind of back. Then you might progress further and you go into the mountains, you can't progress there, and actually you then have to go back to the graveyard to get something from there to progress. And it's set up in that sort of same kind of way. So it's just not one big kind of detailed map where everything interlinks and has to join. It is basically like you have landed on a planet and you have this accessible area in front of you, and you can explore that as much as you want. It doesn't make it too on rails. The instant you land on the planet is a bit more, or at least you're directed quite nicely when you sort of land. And there's markers.
I guess it's just less of an issue nowadays, because like load times are just not even a thing anymore. Like hopping between different planets.
Absolutely. And this is almost like you teleport between the different planets, and it is instantaneous. Realistically, it's a second or two, and suddenly the animation kicks in, and you're going. So, it is really quick. There's no it could be one map, really, but the way that they've made how open the kind of individual maps on each of the planets are, I think would have been more difficult to have locked things off or blocked things, or get them to be interconnected in that kind of way. What's interesting about this is it's made by a completely different studio to the first game.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Weren't they owned by like Google for a bit? And
I don't know. So this is made by Raccoon Logic Studios, and it's self-published, developed and self-published. Whereas the first game was made by, I did just have it up.
I want to say that they were bought by Google. Google shut them down, and then I think it might have been the same people who started a new studio. Potentially. So the first studio was Typhoon. On Steam, they've only got Journey to the Savage Planet on there. But the first game was published by 505. So I don't know the story, but what you've just said, I could absolutely get. And they've come back and gone, we want to make a sequel to the only game that we managed to make. So the Raccoon Logic Studios, again, the only game they have on Steam is Revenge of the Savage Planets. This is the first game for that studio, so that would make sense if that's correct. Acquired by Google in 2019, which was only 2 years after it was founded. As part of Stadia Games and Entertainment. It was shut down in 2020. No, sorry. After releasing its first game in 2020, Journey to the Savage Planet, that was shut down in 2021. A new studio, Raccoon Logic, was formed in August 2021 by former Typhoon Studio staffers with control over the rights of the Savage Planet.
Good.
So hopefully they got back a lot of that staff.
Absolutely.
So,
and good that they kind of kept the rights to the IP and those sorts of things as well. It wasn't like Google coming in and saying, we're buying the studio, we want you to make games for us, but we're also taking away all of your any IP that you've got or any products you've got, any ideas. They're all ours. They're all Google's ideas now, motherfuckers. So no, great that they were able to retain that. Amazing. And as I say, I'm really enjoying it. Like I'm about 6-7 hours in, and I will keep plugging away. I think I've got one more planet to still unlock, but it's kind of, it's got a bit of a storyline. It's not just you've been dumped on this planet, you should probably just go around and do some stuff. It's that, but with a bit of intrigue to it, with a bit of like the idea of corporate espionage and all of these kinds of things. Obviously in a far-flung sci-fi future. It's an interesting mix of stuff, but just a fun time, really, to get lost into. Cool. Not much more to say about that. Maybe return to talk about it in a few weeks' time or something. If I've got any further thoughts or anything that makes me want to talk about it again. Do either of you have anything you want to touch on? I imagine maybe we spend a bit of time on blueprints towards the end of the episode, perhaps.
I've literally played nothing. In fact, I've probably played more Animal Crossing than anything else.
Oh, really?
Oh, well, that's a game. That's playing a thing. You said I've literally played nothing. I have not played a video game outside of the New York Times things twice in the past 6 weeks.
Wow.
The context is mostly reading text in Animal Crossing, as when nephew plays it. And when he's eating his dinner, let's say, asking me to chop down trees, etc., and collect resources. That is what I've been playing in Animal Crossing. So yeah.
That's
I've been colonizing those islands. Because
what's made you go back to it?
Yeah. The nephew plays.
Yeah. He has my Switch. I gave him my Switch years ago. It's all my old games on it, and it's like he found Animal Crossing. We went to an Animal Crossing experience at the Sea Life Centre, and it was just as terrible as you can expect it would be, just like low effort Nintendo. But we got to meet. Is it Isabel?
Yes.
I think it's Isabel, not Daisy. Okay, I don't know why I call her Daisy. Isabel, the dog. We got to meet her in a suit, and that was fun.
Nice.
The funny thing is that experience was mostly adults and very few children. Like to have a photo with Isabel. There were 3 children in the room of like 30.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, it was a phenomenon, and I guess a lot of them were like young adults,
sure,
probably in their 20s. So it's like,
probably
played it when they were
go
to school.
When they were high school or middle school. Struggling.
So I can't judge. I just found it amusing. But I started him with a new island because he was playing on mine.
And you're like, don't fuck this up. I'll never go back, but this is my island.
No, I was like, nuke it. I don't care. Yeah.
But I mean,
so we can
things like the museum collection-y stuff, like those are.
He wanted to make his own museum collection.
Well, that's what I mean. That's why I'm saying it makes sense to make a new one, because there are a lot of chunks of it that are not repeatable.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to teach him about colonization and patience.
And then you inadvertently taught him about managerial techniques because he outsourced the boring part.
Oh yeah, I've been doing that for most of the game, so yeah. That's no surprise. He's testing for middle management. Like
that is damning.
As long as he gives me a job. When I'm old and arthritic and can't even type.
That's it. You've got the knowledge, Lucy. You've got the knowledge of how not to do things. I'll tell you exactly how to bypass all of this bullshit.
I need to work smart, not hard. But yeah, so yeah, just being that's playing Animal Crossing, which is, gosh, kind of frustrating how slow it is at the start. But as I say, teaching patience. But yeah,
nice.
Other than Blueprints 6 weeks ago or whenever that game came out, that's all I've played. Yeah.
Fair. I mean, should we talk about Blueprints then? Should we jump into chatting about it?
I'm excited to hear about it because it's barely. I'm so out of touch with all the things that it lightly touched my radar like 2 weeks ago, and I opened the Steam page up on my phone browser, because that's what the link opened in from. I think it was a Bisky post, and of course got lost in what it is to be a phone tab in a browser on a machine where you can't actually easily go through all the tabs or see how many are open. But it seemed like my type of jam. If I had a type of jam for games, which I'm increasingly wondering if I do, because it doesn't seem like games. I remember they exist.
Absolutely.
I'm with you on that as well. Like, I'm so out of touch. I haven't even watched the GTA 6 trailer.
No, I have to.
There was a trailer?
Yeah, there was. Like, but again, that's like 3 weeks ago now, isn't it? Maybe 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, and I haven't watched it yet.
So, I know there.
I knew there was like 2 minutes long.
Yeah, I think there. Last time I heard about it, it was the teaser, and it showed that there were 2 protagonists, one of which was female, and then the anti-woke brigade said some things.
Maybe.
But like I'm saying, this is my vague recollection of, but a couple months ago, teaser is the last I knew.
I think that was years ago.
Like I said, months, just,
days.
Factor of 12.
In 2020, when COVID happened, and they revealed the first trailer for GTA 6. That probably isn't that long ago.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, mine probably is.
Yeah.
Who
knows?
Before we launch into Blueprints, as we're back with a bang. It's 10 years of Tanked Up. We're back with a bang for the first episode in a few weeks. I'm gonna drink another beer because I've already smashed through that Beak X Floc beer.
Jeez.
We're only gonna probably be another half an hour of chatting about Blueprints, but I'm gonna have another beer anyway. I'm gonna drink a Verdant. It's called Soft Disco Leisure Reception. And it's who knows what the fucking title means.
That's a random word generator.
Absolutely. I do wonder when we start getting like obviously Donald Glover's Childish Gambino name comes from the Wu-Tang name generator. I do wonder whether some brewery is just going to start doing Wu-Tang name generator, and that's just every beer that they put out essentially. But this is an IPA. It's 6.5%. It has the same hops on both the hot and the cold side. It's Citra, Mosaic, and Riwaka. And that's all we get from Verdant. But there is a disco ball. Disco ball on the can.
I don't think I've seen that one. I'm seeing like some new beers from Verdant that I don't often see. They don't really make their way up here that often. I mean, like new ones.
Yeah, Verdant. You get Verdant quite a lot here.
Yeah. Starting to see them pop up a bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did crack the can. It has gone everywhere, or splashed on my laptop. That'd be fine. Laptop, keyboard, one of them. One of those words that makes sense. One of the technological things. Loads. This is incredibly carbonated. You can see just loads of head there. That will dissipate a touch, but it's a nice light colour. Similar to the Beak and the Floc. I like it. That's a nice thing to say. I think Beak and Floc should make more beers just so I can say the Beak and the Floc. But
that's got unique but good mouthfeel.
It does.
Actually saying.
Yeah, absolutely. The Beak and the Floc. It's good. This is a nice nose, but it's very different I've drunk two 6.5% IPAs this evening, or I'm about to drink the second one, but completely different nose to the first beer. A lot more ripe. There's a lot of ripe kind of mango in this nose. A bit earthy as well in the nose. Maybe even kind of on that vegetal sort of side of things as well. It's smooth, as you expect from Verdant. But it's actually not a huge amount going on. I'll give it a minute to see sort of what happens. But that first sip, it was almost a bit neutral in flavour. I don't know whether the first beer is kind of affecting that little bit.
Don't expect that from Verdant. Oh. You need some water. You need some spittoon.
I do. Swill out with some red wine and spit it away. Just so, getting a bit more through now. It is very earthy. It is very vegetal in that sort of sense. I think soft in the soft disco leisure reception title only refers to the mouthfeel. Like the flavour here is actually quite harsh. So it's quite a vegetal, quite an earthy sort of flavour. And then there's this sort of slightly more piney kind of finish, but not a big piney flavour. It just feels like it's a piney finish. It feels a little bit kind of sticking around in my mouth. It feels a little bit harsh, almost. I'm going to let this sit. I'll come back to it at the end of the episode when we round out beers. But we'll see how this one goes. Blueprints then. And I think this is your kind of game. I do think it's got a lot of elements of stuff that you enjoy. It's got the puzzle elements. It's got kind of like the drafting of rooms. For anyone that doesn't know, incredibly quick pull on this. You are moving through a mansion and you move room by room. And as you move into a new room, you have to pick one of 3 rooms. So you draft 3 rooms, you pick one of them to be that room. And what you're ultimately trying to do is to find and access the 46th room, 48th room of this mansion. And a load of stuff will kind of get in the way of doing that. The rooms only allow you to kind of access certain paths. So you might place a room and you can only either move through a door that might be in front of you or to the right or to the left. Some rooms have doors everywhere. Some rooms only have doors in certain sort of situations. And you're laying these out on a 5x9 grid, roughly. So 45. Yeah, so this is a 46th room that you're trying to look for. So that's kind of the premise of what you're trying to do. Lucy, as I've stolen some time, how have you felt about Blueprints? Did you finish it?
No. Okay. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. It was like the only thing that's held my attention this year for a decent chunk of time. I don't know how much time I put into it. It's probably a decent amount, probably maybe even 30 hours or something like that.
Oh wow.
And I got to the point where I was like, this is too much like homework. I was speaking to Francis about it. I got to the point where it's like you're in that like early game where you're still discovering new rooms and you're finding out all these different revelations and stuff. And you've got to the end, you've got to the chamber that's at the end, and it's like, oh, I need to do something additional to actually get into room 46. And it's like, okay, I know what that thing is, and there's been more revelations along the way, more puzzles that I've solved, more shortcuts, because it's like that kind of, I don't know, Dark Souls-esque thing where it's like, oh, you get to this place and you knock down a ladder and it's like, okay, I can access that quicker now, that area quicker, without having to go through the same steps every time. But I'm at the point where it's like, I know what I have to do, but a lot of it is committing things to memory.
Yep.
Because note taking is essential in this game. It's like, you know, and it isn't just note taking. It's like you need some visual aids as well. So it's like I've got like 60 photos on my phone where it's just like I've taken these things. I didn't know what some of them meant. I know what some of them mean. They're all, you know, because they're not sequential because it's a roguelike. So sometimes you're gonna encounter puzzles out of sequence and the elements that you need to solve puzzles out of sequence. So they're all over the place. And it would be a case of like, I was talking to Francis earlier, it's like homework.
Yeah.
There's genuinely a part of the game where you sit down and do an actual exam.
Yep.
And I'm just like,
what?
I can't.
So I completely agree, and I think I picked up on this idea that every room has information in pretty quickly, and so it doesn't appear like that at first glance. You know, you do your first run, and I wouldn't. This is the kind of game. Doesn't feel like it's a roguelike game, because I don't think you could get to the end of the game on the first run. I think the game is drip feeding and trying to play you through a set of different information and a set of puzzles,
sorry.
No, please.
Oh, I mean, Hades is a great example of a roguelike that's not a roguelike in that sense, because the whole point is to experience the plot through multiple runs.
Yes.
It's plot-based, like the dialogue matters more than, say, directly solving puzzles in a certain sense, but obviously you're also unlocking things that kind of can't do the same.
But in Hades,
so I'm just sort of
could you, on your first go, finish that game? There's nothing in the way of doing that.
Like, there's a technical path. You would have to be very good. I'm sure there's a fucking yeah. I see what you're saying. I was just sort of saying, for the average player, it would resemble Hades in a certain ways, kind of.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd say that's more an element of skill, being able to complete it on the first go, whereas this is, you need to acquire knowledge, you know.
That's
if you, like, yes, if you played the game and you know what you're doing, you could start a new run and maybe complete it rather quickly. But from someone who's fresh, you need to acquire the knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, basically how certain rooms work. Yeah.
And there are epistemic barriers rather than barriers you can get through with very quick fingers.
Yes, very much. But there are also like specific rooms that you have to unlock to be able to progress things as well.
Oh, okay.
And I like in this game that there are early rooms which actually, and as you say, Lucy, it does feel like a bit of an exam sort of towards the end of the game. So there are early rooms which figure into puzzles very late on in the game. And like you, as I say, sort of, I think I figured this out quite quickly, and I'm just like, screenshot fucking everything. Just like, there's numbers here, but who knows what these numbers relate to? Screenshot it. Great, cool. That's in the bank for later. I'll come back to it.
So you're playing this on the PC then?
No, on the PlayStation. So just literally just on the share button. There's a button on the pad, so I can just bam.
I was thinking on the Windows, you no longer have a print screen. You have, I believe it's like, meta key. Windows key Shift S, but then you have to draw. It overlays a thing, and then you have to like pick the part of the screen that you want to screen capture.
Oh,
which God knows.
Thing.
Sorry.
The snipping tool.
Yes, that's the thing.
Yeah, I'm playing it on Game Pass via Steam Deck, which is a nice place to play it.
I played it a lot on Steam Deck as well. Yeah.
But it sort of lands in the same place that Lorelei and the Laser Eyes did for me either last year or the year before, where it was like, I love the start of it, I love the new revelations and everything, but there comes a point where it's like, that game actually got a bit too, convoluted and difficult, and it became more of a memory game than like just pure figuring it out. And I feel like this one is as well, like just having to remember, this is what this symbol looks like, this is what that looks like, and yes, taking notes and taking pictures will help you recall that, but then it just feels like I'm spending too much time out of the game,
Sure.
like looking at reference points, and it's like that doesn't seem as fun to me as, say, like a witness, which is all logic just within your brain because you've learned how to solve these kind of puzzle languages.
Yeah. I think there is a way to play, and I have beaten Blueprints. I think there is a way to play where you don't, and this is the interesting thing with this game. You can finish it without having uncovered everything. So you don't necessarily need to log everything that you see. There's puzzles in this game where I have written information down. I've got pieces of A4 paper where I've written tons of information. There's one where you draft a room, and it suddenly says, "Here's like a new puzzle." You're like, "Oh shit! I should have been collecting information right from the fucking start for this. Like, I'll now have to just start filling things in as I go." What does it? When I got to the end of the game, I'm like, "Well, that didn't matter in any way whatsoever." But there's lots of kind of like there's the ending, and I would imagine there's kind of then the true ending where you've unlocked everything you possibly can. We've got all of the information that you can possibly get. And there's a bunch of stuff outside the manor as well that you can kind of go and look at and do and unlock and things. And it's all interconnected with a bunch of the rooms within the manor as well. So you get information in some of the rooms, and then that relates to stuff that is elsewhere as well.
I'll have to ask you or just Google what your ending is, because so have you got into room 46?
Yes. Yeah. And I've had got into the room, and I've had an ending cutscene and credits rolled, basically. But it then starts you back as the game starts you on the first day. It sweeps into the manor, and then it comes into first person, and you walk into the room. And when you go back into the game to continue, it does that. But obviously, everything that I've already unlocked is unlocked. Obviously, I have all of my notes, and I could start to build upon that. One of the things we didn't mention is that there is a limitation on the game, and you only have a certain amount of steps that you can take each day until the basically says you're tired, you have to go to bed, and then you can just come into the next day. There are a bunch of ways.
And it's a pedometer. It's not a time thing.
It's a pedometer. Each room is basically one step, let's say. So you can. It's not a step as such. It's like you've gone into a new room, so that's one counter down.
Right. So it's an exploration cap.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
There's no day that you can explore more than any other day.
Maximum. Sure. There will be a maximum. Some rooms give you more. Some rooms take those away. There is a permanent upgrade as well. So this game has so again, but a bit more like a roguelike. The game does have permanent upgrades built within it that you can unlock and things like that.
So is this like a stat that you know of?
Yeah, it's on the screen. It's on the screen.
Okay.
And there's ways that you can increase it within each run. Like, you can consume items.
Yep.
You can have these like perks, temporary perks or buffs, or say like you can swap because the main currency is like keys and gems that you need to open different rooms. So it's like, instead of opening this room with gems, I can use my step counter to open them instead and stuff like that. So there's all these different. I mean, the steps is essentially one of your currencies, and you can tailor how much of each currency, keys, gems, and steps that you have. So yeah, everyone is different in that sense. Sometimes you can start, runs with like double the amount of steps that you usually have if you play certain things right and set do one run and set yourself up for the next run, or runs in a couple of days, etc. So yeah, that's cool. I think I think maybe I was too, because I didn't look up anything in this game. 'Cause I didn't want to. I think maybe I was too sidetracked by thinking what I thought was the end of the game, but maybe it's like the secret ending that I was building towards rather than just
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that's,
credits ending.
but that's what I was building towards as well. You know, taking all of the
Mhm.
notes, taking all of those screenshots, trying to take in as much information as possible, and then kind of not to spoil too much, but you need a specific room placed to be able to access an area, which then has its own bunch of puzzles and stuff in that wants you to be able to then access that from different rooms and different areas because stuff is blocked off and stuff. So there's the puzzle of the kind of it did make me think of The Witness, in that you're moving through a bunch of different puzzles in The Witness, and then you get to the mountain in the middle of the island, and you don't have to do the puzzle under the mountain, but everyone wants to do the puzzle under the mountain. And I bashed my head against that puzzle under the mountain for a very long time before I just went, I am not quick enough at being able to do this. I am just going to finish the game. But the puzzle the puzzle towards the end of this, essentially kind of like to get credits roll kind of, it just reminded me of that. Not that it was you had to be quick in that sort of same sense, but it was then a puzzle on top of everything else that you're trying to do, and everything's been building towards that. You have to use the same logic in some senses, but even within that, there was areas that there's doors that I couldn't access and things, and I'm like, I clearly have to do something somewhere else just to see what's in this. Who knows what's in here? What upgrade that kind of gives me? Do I now need to do like 10 more runs to then open this door to be able to then get into the other door and then be able to do this and then be able to do that? And ultimately, no is the answer. And
okay,
maybe
I've gone so far off tangent that's where because say if I had just reached door 46, however you do that, maybe then I wouldn't have got just so not annoyed by it, but like had my fill of it and then just bounced off completely. Yeah, maybe I'll just Google it. I'll just Google what do you have to do to get to door 46, sorry. Have I been doing the mountain pass? Because when it was like, oh, you have to go below to get up, I was like, okay, do I have to unlock like these 8 other doors? What am I doing here?
Yeah, I can see how it would, it presents itself in a way of being like, just do this, and you do it, and you're like, oh no, that's not just what I have to do. There's now more that needs to happen. But I think it's even with all of that, even with the idea that you don't have to unlock everything to be able to kind of get to the end, I think it's a very incredibly well connected game and a very well really thought out game. Yeah. Like there's
not been anything like it. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And there's so many different connections between rooms and between spaces or between items that you find and then sort of things. But not even that. It's also incredibly well thought out in the way that you draft the rooms and where you place them, because there are like location specific rooms as well that you can kind of place, and if you don't concentrate on that area of the map, let's say, or move around them, move through the match and move through this grid in a specific kind of way, you could absolutely miss a bunch of stuff and kind of never experience that, or be able to kind of do it in a way where suddenly you're shortcutting like an area and being able to go, now I can access this, and that's then unlocked this, which allows me then to do this. And I think I'd done it in like 20 runs. I think I finished it in about 20 runs, something like that. Might be a bit less, might be in the high teens. Yeah, like maybe 18 or 19. But I think I was
thinking, what the hell have I been doing?
Well, then? I think I was just incredibly lucky in a couple of early runs in unlocking rooms, understanding how that connected with another room, and going, great, on the next run, I'm going to draft this one really quick,
You're gonna
really early. I'm
line for it.
Yeah, I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to go and get that room because I can see that then accesses me to a bunch of other stuff. Great, I've now done that. I'm now going to draft these rooms, and that's ultimately my day done. But I've unlocked X, Y, and Z.
I will say that
literally all that you have to do. What have I been doing then? Because I reached this like 50 runs ago.
I mean, so I think the thing is, like, if I'm
Did I
looking
just
at
not walk into the room? What?
how long to beat has the main story at 16 and a half hours.
Mm.
The main and sides at 29 and a half hours.
Yeah.
And the completionist at 81 and a half hours.
I
So
think
I
I was
think what's
doing the
happened is
completion.
you've been caught in all kinds of stuff that exists in the game that just doesn't happen to be the stuff.
Yeah, I think I was going for the completionist route because I'm just reading.
Which
it
also
on
might
Polygon.
explain why you might have gotten bored, because usually
Yeah,
these
because I
things
would
aren't
never play this
polished.
game for 81 hours.
Well,
No.
but also like the bits that are on the periphery tend to be less polished because, you know, capitalism, efficiency.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
I think as well the game does throw in various, or it feels like, at least, let's say main run wise, there's a bunch of red herrings in here, and
Yeah.
you're looking at information like you walk into a room and there's a sundial in it. Actually, it's just a fucking asset and it's just sat there, and it doesn't really matter. But my brain is going, this means something. How does this mean something? But it might mean something, but just for a puzzle that I'm nowhere near getting to yet, because the game is so well crafted that I could see everything in all of those rooms actually having some kind of meaning. So it sort of, it throws that doubt in, and I can see how you'd get lost, Lucy. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking, like, I could just, at the start of a new run now, I could literally just walk into 46.
As long as you draft your rooms to get your path to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been able to do that many a time.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a bunch of clever stuff.
I could have hit credits like 17 hours ago. Gotcha. That's funny.
There's a bunch of very clever stuff in how some of the rooms are connected, and the choices that you have to make. So again, not to spoil too much, I can't remember the name of the room, but it's like a boiler room, and you have a mini puzzle in the boiler room where you have
Diesel and Giovanni Ribisi and Ben Affleck in it.
It does. They're all just.
I don't know why my brain was like, you have to come up with 3 actors for this instead of just Vin Diesel, the one actor, for the terrible reference. But no. Sorry, continue.
We'll bring them all in. So you essentially have the ability to then push power down a pathway that you want to, and then there's a bunch of rooms that you can draft which can use that power to unlock other stuff. So you're like, cool, I've made steam, amazing, that powers everything. Let's send it to the laboratory, or let's send it to somewhere else. And there's a bunch of places where I'm like, oh, I can see why. I can see the ducting on the wall. Literally, the asset is there above the door. I know this connects to that room, and I never connected them at all. And I think there's a bunch, and there's so many like things like the workshop popped up, and you can combine items together to make more powerful or better items. And I maybe made like one combination of items, and actually that didn't really relate. I don't remember to the actual main sort of story. So I can absolutely see, yes, 15, 16 hours just to beat this game, but it's like an 80 to 100 hour to unlock fucking everything. Because even in the end game, where you're like, you know, in like catacombs and shit like that, and it's just like, there's stuff here I still can't unlock. How am I not able to go into this space? I can see that I should go here, but I don't know how to do that. I'm like, no, just stick to the room.
I've been learning how to do all of that for seemingly little reason.
Very much. Yeah.
Everything. But you know what? It has been. It's just been fun when you get all those little realizations and you know, revelations where it's like, oh, I can do this. Oh, that's what that means. So, you know, despite me running out of steam, it was always fun until I did.
You played it on Xbox.
Yes, the puns are back. But yeah,
I think for 6 weeks backlog, I've been very good.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
True. You've reined it in.
I'm just that burnt out. Brain is not working. I think this magic chocolate bar beer and hanging out with you guys for about an hour is finally woken my brain up. Because if you notice, there was like no dumb, shitty quips and puns for the first 45 minutes. And then it was like, oh, these are happening. Oh, right, brain.
So are all of your colleagues missing out on all of these now?
I mean, so the weird thing about my job is I don't interact with my colleagues on the day-to-day that much, right? Like, I mean, I'm doing no research but like, besides that, but it's like on the teaching side, even if I'm splitting a course, it tends to be like, there's no like, oh, we need to plan, like you do your seminar based on the readings, right? It's actually weirdly isolated. And then if you have to interact more with someone, it's often because you're not on the same page, and then it's not a fun interaction. But like I interact, like I see my students during term time more regularly than I see most of my colleagues.
Yeah.
Because I see them at least once a week, the students, right? And then if they come to office hours, it's like, well, the only thing, this is why I really like departments that have communal areas and like a collaborative department seminar or work in progress seminar, which to Bristol's credit, it really did. And then Durham, because of actual geographic architectural constraints, and we're spread across 2 old buildings, we just don't bump into people easily. And then there's also a culture of like, not really, we don't have we have like the one weekly talk that's often people from away that people in the department, most people don't go regularly to.
Yeah.
So it's only the like once a term, so 3 times a year, because we're in a weird 3-term system because we pretend we're Oxbridge. We have our like education committee meeting, our board of studies, our board of examiners at the end of the year, like functional things, and then we go to the pub, right? But outside of those, it's I don't see a lot of my colleagues.
Yeah, I don't see mine, and it's right. So work from home. But anyway, they don't even talk to us on this job, except to order us around.
That must be quite nice.
Annoyed.
You know,
I mean,
as opposed to the last one, which was like, Lucy, can you run some training for us, please? Because you're the best one at doing all of these things, and no one else knows how to.
Yeah. I prefer to be left alone. This is much better. They are like seriously passive aggressive, but I don't mind because they just don't talk to us for days, weeks on end. Often like, do this. Why is this not done? We're like, well, you know, I don't mind it because it's a piece of piss. If it was actually difficult, then I'd be kicking off. Like, why don't you do some more? But, it's great.
Nice. Good.
You're total opposite to Aadil. You're friendly. And social.
Yeah. I am friendly.
And social.
As everybody should be.
And you care.
Yeah, that's true. Turns out sometimes that's not the best approach to life
in
late-stage capitalism. And by
It really
sometimes, I mean often.
I think we won't touch into politics too much. Lots happened in the last 6 weeks.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. The version of Aadil that exists now can't help but like, I was talking. So I have 3 data science students doing their like master's students. They're just starting their like big research project, the capstone of the master's degree. And I'm running this project. All 3 of them are on, which is on like LLMs and logical reasoning, because of course these things don't reason well, but there's different ways that these things are being tested and claims on how we could get them to do that stuff. And in my explanation, when someone's like, why is there a problem with like ordinary language or like context, essentially, you just asked a very good question of like, will this be a problem? I went on a rant about philosophy of language, etc. And in that, though, I had to explain. My brain couldn't tie things together to explain why the linguistic attributes and tokenization approach of LLMs was affected by late-stage capitalism and efficiency problems, because you can't escape it. Like it's been one of those things where this past year I've noticed it's like, all right, but also this is a factor, like because of capitalism, and it's like so I feel like, and I probably look like the like prototypical right wing. They're trying to wokeize our students, right, our kids, professor. But I'm really just like, it's an explanatory fact that, for example, the only way we got to the fact that LLMs could make speech is by a bunch of copyright infringing, dumping the internet and other people's IP into a thing that seemed to gain accuracy if you could dump enough stuff into it. But because that's the thing, we can't rely on it to do stuff with specialized terminology because the technology uses strings of characters as tokens, and when a zoologist says fish and a fisherman says fish, which is an old school Carnapian reference, hey, if any philosophers in the audience still alive, it will read it the same as the same thing, and so you can't get it to be a thing that's good at zoology or understand what fisher people mean, because it elides those by definition. And if you just focus on the specialized terminology, you don't have enough juice to get the human sounding language. So they're trying to train it on the giant database and then fine tune it for the specialized stuff. But of course, it's statistical mappings based on how often things appear together, etc. Turns out it's kind of amazing that makes those connections based on the corpus of humanities writing, which I think is actually the thing we should be impressed by. We have created so much knowledge that you can actually map concepts in functional ways, right? But anyway,
it's always fun asking the robots, where are you getting this from? And they're like, Quora, and I'm like, well.
Well, so the thing is, the beauty of LLMs they actually can't tell you where they're getting it from. But yeah, so this is part of the problem is, in order to get AI to work as soon as possible, we've dumped any possible strings of text. But if what we're trying to do is things with accuracy and regularity, this is a bad idea. But we're already there, and right now we have models that do the thing reasonably well, quote unquote, and so people are building on those models. But so late stage capitalism kind of condemned this approach 5 years ago, and that's just a fact of why we're where we're at and why we won't be able to go backwards, because you can't go back to build a less efficient model that could 5 versions from now be more accurate. That's just not how work gets done in the modern era. And so I'm sitting here saying all this stuff, and I'm like, why is our world is fucked, and I can't even describe a technical thing without having to go into.
It is because people believe anything that's in front of their faces and whatever they see without actually questioning it.
You know what my favorite thing is? Then we can probably leave. Is I've seen this in multiple sources. Of course, I care about people using ChatGPT and especially students and all this stuff, right? I have seen this turn of phrase in multiple modes of so reported in Facebook groups by educators, in journalist grade articles, in Substacks, etc. The COVID coming of age and finishing secondary school COVID generation, because I think calling them Gen Z or Gen Alpha misses the point that the university students I'm dealing with now are a special sort of bubble. And why I say that is because we have the chance to put interventions for even the kids who are stuck in primary school in COVID to sort of address some of these problems. We won't, because who puts money or attention to education? But it does it demarcates a thing that couldn't be helped. It's stuck, right? Because just the way brains develop and the stunting of learning. The phrase "I googled it on ChatGPT" is so fucking common, and just sit with that
Those
and
are two
unpack it in
different
your brain.
things.
Yep. Nope. Yep.
I asked ChatGPT to pull from what they think is Google.
No.
Even though it's pulling
So
from
again, I'm not going to unpack this for you. Anyone who listens to
Please.
this is capable of doing
I
it.
understand.
Oh, yeah, the point is, that's a phrase that exists in fairly commonly. That's why I had all that build-up. I've seen it all over.
Does Google have its own AI assistant? What's it called?
Yes, they do, but they're not talking about that. So these are people. So
they've gone on ChatGPT, and they've potentially typed in Google, and then the thing they want to Google.
You guys are mistaking
the
search engine for the term.
So instead of
Googling it
used to
something. So they grew up with people like us, their parents, right? Searching for something on the internet, Googling.
Oh,
they did not get any education on research or methods or what the thing is. So Google is the Kleenex term, right?
Yeah.
For looking something up online. And now they do that on ChatGPT. So I Googled that on ChatGPT.
So at some point in the future, when you are reading through a paper and you get to the end and they've got their references, and it says references X and then Googled X. It's just because they either
I vacuumed my Hoover.
Don't give references or they copy and paste it on ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will make the right style of reference to books that don't exist.
Oh, really?
Oh, God, yeah, no, that's the... Okay, I'm going to stop, but yes, this is one of the biggest problems with researching on ChatGPT. It is a predictive text algorithm on steroids.
Yeah.
It just tries to give you what you want to hear, so if you say, I want a source like this, it will make the most plausible sounding thing, because LLMs don't record facts. They really aren't capable of that. That's not what they do. So there's no way to test the veracity. It doesn't know anything about veracity.
It's very interesting because someone basically there's I got asked a question about a contract, and to understand the answer to the question, you have to intimately know this contract and understand exactly how it works, but also know a bunch of case law as well, because the contract in previous times hasn't been very good, and then it's gone through case law and all this sort of stuff.
Right.
And they came back to me and said, "Oh, I've Googled it, and actually had Googled it using that sort of stuff." But then their AI summary came up telling them something, and I'm like, "That's not correct."
Yeah, it's always wrong.
You cannot, especially in contractual terms.
Oh, but
don't we fucking do this for any legal requirement.
No, we have actual lawyers who have submitted ChatGPT generated briefs to judges and been called out of it on it. And if you want the receipts, contact me at the Omniarch on Blue Sky or Instagram or whatever, because I have links to this, where the judge has said, this is obviously AI generated and you haven't said that. That's bad. Not only do you have to fix this, but you're responsible for the harm, because the other side assumed this was real case law and burnt a lot of time, and you're responsible for that waste of time. And guess what? They resubmitted without parts of it, but with parts of it, and still didn't do the acknowledgement. And this is like after being fucking told off by a judge. Because, and I'm going to say this out of kindness for those people, they're under such pressures to get work done as soon as possible, because, let me hear it, late stage capitalism is a bad influence on the best of people, and I don't think it's on the best of people.
Yeah, but there's you have a duty of care when you're in jobs such as those.
Absolutely.
Maybe you shouldn't be in that job if you can't take the pressure in the work.
Yep.
Just saying. But
I mean, the problem with that claim is that late stage capitalism encourages people who don't understand, promotes people who don't actually understand the job into the position of power of judging what the workload should be, and squeezes out the people who are capable.
Yeah, you feel sorry for them.
But the thing is, if the
I would not
answer
be putting corners regardless. You know what I mean? That's.
But then, but the problem is,
they should be barred.
There's always a constant pressure at the top to do more with less. So at some point, everyone has to quit under the rule of if I can't handle the pressure. And actually,
Yeah,
fuck it,
I
that
know,
shit.
it's unfair, but like, it's not
If we
even
had
that.
a
It's
social
like,
safety net, we could do that, and then they'd find themselves without workers.
from a moral and professional point of view, can't be doing that.
No,
Right.
You know?
It's all
more
broken.
so than-
it is all
Yeah.
broken, and it's unfortunately it's across all sort of sectors. So someone else I've been talking to is having a bit of an issue at work, and basically they are, and this is again, I don't know whether this is not necessarily an area thing, but a modern management kind of style. In that, essentially, that person is saying, "Well, I could do it, so if you can't, you're not right for this job." And it's one where
Can you actually?
so this is part of it, but also this friend is like, well, it's not just me that can't do it; it's literally everyone fucking here that can't do it.
Yes.
So does that mean that it's incorrect to try and do it in that way, and they're trying to make us do something that isn't correct? And I'm like, well, all of you need to fucking unionize and just walk out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we can't do that. I'm like, you fucking can. If they turn up to work on Monday and none of you are there, they're fucked.
Yeah.
So you have the power. Like you do. You do.
Yeah.
So this is the problem with late stage capitalism. Pardon the reference. Taking over the media for decades, right? Like a lot of the power of unions has been taken out by successive governments and eroding unions. I don't want to
also unions themselves. Also unions.
Yes, I mean the union. Yeah. But like I think what has enabled the unions to let themselves be neutered is the fact that the unions are regular people who read the stories, and it's slightly less bad in the UK than the US, but it's the story of what a union is the story of what led to this golden era of the 50s to 70s that like everyone wants to get back to, forgetting that the thing that undid it was Thatcher and Reagan, and so doubling down on their policies is not going to get you there. But somehow it's the like Thatcher Reagan policies and New Deal style, post-war era prosperity. It's like you can't marry these two in your fucking nostalgia. I get it that for you, 70 years and 70 years and 90 years, 70 years and 50 years. I realized that, right, isn't the same, or whatever the fucking maths are, right? Like, but also guess what? You cut funding for enough decades, and people don't even know the history, and they will not have the cognitive. Like, it's very hard to convince people that how much labor mattered, and also how much the pure growth from the decimation of both capital and labor in Europe of World War II allowed things to be created and growth, and that growth was so big for the amount of people involved around. None of them minded that you were investing in infrastructure and education and a social security net because there was so much money around. And like the US is a great example of like the fucking marginal tax rate was so big, but that encourages companies, for example, to reinvest so they don't have to pay tax. And that's what like a whole shit ton of the innovation that came out of the US was based on big companies spending money on research that wasn't directly related to their immediate bottom line. So they didn't have to pay tax. They got to benefit from whatever. And then they patent that stuff and they continue. And now, because the goals of capitalism have degenerated to, in the next 3 months, does this make line go up the most?
I'm just wondering when it all ends and collapses.
I mean, I think one of the things that humanity might have to thank Trump for is accelerating the end game.
Well,
I mean, we might not be around at the end game in the way he's doing it, but like,
Press the red button.
I think it so. Yeah. How deep do we get on this?
Also, I love.
Ultimately, in Trump's non-presidential 4-year period, he has surrounded himself and visited and spoken with not a bunch of late-stage capitalists, because he knows that playbook, but he's been talking to a bunch of disaster capitalists, people like Nigel Farage, people like Kim Jong-un, people who know these kinds of ways of being able to destitute people, and has ultimately got to that point where he's like, late-stage capitalism is fine, but it's not what I want to achieve. What I need to achieve is the pure destitution of fucking everybody and just allow myself and a few selected people. So we need to generate these awful things, and we need to capitalize on those awful things, like shorting the stock market and making a bunch of fucking money off of all of his NFTs and Bitcoin and all that sort of stuff. Like, fucking, how is he not in jail?
It's because
he set the precedent that a president cannot be put in jail ultimately, like several weeks before that.
Not even that, though, right? Because the thing is, it really exposes the U.S.'s two-party state, which I think is a mirror of our two-party state.
Yes.
As the left is married to neoliberalism and will ultimately make the trains run on time over the needs of the country and corruption. Yeah. We saw that kind of during COVID with the conservatives. The kind of nonsense that was starting to happen, right? End of Boris, etc. And God, I lost her name.
Teresa.
Like Cabbage.
Oh, Truss.
Truss. Yeah, Liz.
Truss was like saying the worst version of it out loud, but they were all doing the same thing, right?
Yeah.
But like, where was I going with this? I've derailed myself with cabbage. I don't even know if it's the right vegetable.
Lettuce.
God damn it. Hilarious. Both greens that they don't believe in, apparently. So they were playing this sort of late stage. Oh, I've lost the thought. I'm really annoyed now. Late stage capitalism.
Is that the capitalism? That's what conservatives trains running on time.
Right. Yeah. So when they were starting to say some real batshit stuff, Labor didn't say, "What the fuck, guys? This is batshit." No, what they said was, "I'm not sure." And then when they got in power, they're like, we'll keep a bunch of this stuff.
Yep.
So I will say, a big guy told you so, because I've been holding back since the fucking election. But when I was like, I'm worried about Starmer, a whole bunch of people, including friends of mine, who were like, no, he's just saying that to get more votes. And I was like, that's not the fucking case. I think you should believe what he's saying. And he is worse than what he was saying.
Yep.
The case was like, he's just marginally less bad.
No. So
that was where I was.
I am not saying people who supported him were all in this camp. I'm saying there were like very staunch Labor people, some of whom I am close to as friends for a long time, who are just like, don't worry about that, because they believed in this sort of notion of the system will work, and like they might be misguided about trying to court the center. Didn't interrogate why the fuck they would want to do that, because if you looked at the facts, it didn't make sense. But neoliberal centrist parties want the status quo and do not want to upset things. The Democrats have had over 100 days to actually use the levers that of power they have access to, like Congress, saying this is a congressional power and you don't get to do this. You cannot make a bunch of those executive orders are illegal. Instead, they said, let's hope the fucking justice, like the court system, will do it. But of course, we have more because
we now don't want to seem unpopular to 50% of the nation. We can't now. We don't want to fucking do it.
Right?
It's not. It's like 25.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the thing is, our Labor Party, the Democrats, are the same sort of. So why do they vote? Yeah, but the thing is, like, I have no idea why any Democrat, given that there is a Republican majority, votes to confirm any of Trump's appointees, especially the toxic ones. And the answer is they are career politicians trying to keep some credit in the game with the guy in power, and that's fucking broken.
Absolutely.
Starmer is broken because he's a career politician first.
Can't beat him, Joe. Because how many times have we told you idiots that this is bad, and then you go do it anyway? They're just like, you know what?
And then,
so what I will say
unfortunately,
very good beer.
Good. We will come to that momentarily. I was going to just finish on, unfortunately, what that then leads to is not necessarily political apathy, but political annoyance and unrest, in which the only valid alternative, at least in the UK, it's not the Lib Dems, who've existed in the centre for a long time. It's just the fucking absolute disaster capitalist cunts who have decided that they managed to infiltrate fucking every possible seat they can. And the rise of reform is going to be looked back on as an absolute fucking point in UK history where everyone will go, we lost our minds for like 5 years and allowed these people to get just a tiny little bit of power before we realised, hopefully, that they are just there to exploit and make fucking money wherever they goddamn can.
Yeah, I think I will refrain from going deeper into this because I recognize this craft beer and video game podcast has gone a bit long. I think this is our longest.
Tanked up politics.
Yeah, it's fine. I think so. Actually, I think it's really important because yes, we're craft beer and video games, but fucking politics exists everywhere, and anyone who says get politics out of games or whatever, you can't. It's part of the human condition.
Politics is
everywhere. And we're at a specific time in the world where you have to acknowledge these things somewhere. Why have a bunch of breweries closed down in the past couple of years? Well, there was a COVID bump, and then people didn't renew the funding, even if they claimed they were a business for it, right?
Absolutely. To pull it back to Blueprint slightly, actually, that's one issue I have with the game. It's got this little bit of mixed messaging around.
It the Keir Starmer you find in room 27?
Yeah. Just the ghost of fucking Thatcher hovering around. It has this like slightly old money, not anti-capitalist message to it, right? And it's kind of
really?
like it's this like the literal premise of the game is we're old money and none of us have ever had to work for anything. So I've decided that you have to work for everything. Pull your fucking boots up, mate. Let's go. Yeah. And that's the whole fucking premise of the game.
Yeah, but
you sleep in a tent.
Literally sleep in a fucking tent now. Can't even stay in the fucking house.
Could that be read as commentary, or is it just like? Is it so bad that it's using a horrible economic system?
No, I think it is commentary because the storyline through the game and a bunch of the exposition and that you find letters through the game and yes, trust. She's just there again. The ghost of trust. No, hopefully.
No, trust is decomposed. The lettuce has outlasted her. That's the point. Right?
It's full of hormones and fucking bug spray, but there is a bunch of commentary in this game that is not necessarily it all leads up to an anti-establishment group and the idea of a heist at some point and all of these kinds of things, and there's a bit of anti-royalist sort of sentiment in there, but not kind of really. So there's a lot of like little bits of politics in Blueprints, but nothing convincing. And maybe your 80 hours lays out a whole political manifesto and explains everything and pulls in all of these threads that are going kind of through. But it does have a little bit of mixed messaging, I think, if you're just experiencing sort of the main run through kind of thing, at least. So yeah, a slight, like, there could have been a stronger message and a stronger thing, but I could see why there possibly isn't, because the game is so well crafted in terms of the way that everything connects together that is clearly where the focus was. So
I still got the idea that the uncle or whatever, he sucks. He kind of knows he sucks.
Yes.
His daughter knows he sucks.
Yep.
And that's the kind of thing that I go. And there are people conspiring against him in the mansion. Some of the staff. So yeah, tear it all down. Eat the rich. Vote.
There is that vibe.
Face.
There is absolutely that kind of There's that old money anti-capitalist sort of vibe, but also in the way that they're like, however, life was good for me. It's not good for you, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Right. And it shouldn't be. Why should you get handed? I was handed things. Why should you get fucking handed things? Work for this. So yeah,
and they just unceremoniously like lay off staff. So maybe
they do. Absolutely.
Oh, you guys, I'm going to buy this game now because you guys already sold it to me, but and I'm like about to finish marketing season, but now I must do the weird fucking like how anti/pro capitalist is this game? Like
You're like,
yeah, that is your research.
You'll be like 90 hours in, just like this. I've got no idea. I've got no idea what's going on.
No, I'll have an idea. It just might not be. It might be it's the reading one gets out of it. It doesn't mean there's intent. Right?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. This is the interview we need on Tanked Up. The purely political blueprints.
You know what? This is what Tanked Up needs. It needs less craft beer video game chatting shit and more deep diving into capitalism's effect on the meat and bones of the game.
Absolutely.
This is actually not a bad idea, but like
someone has probably written about this.
Oh, definitely. Paul Tassi at fucking what does he write for? Washington Post or somewhere like that.
Look, Polygon.
No, he just writes fucking
secret.
Oh, you can't look at Polygon. You got to rip them. Just. Yeah.
I might read this actually.
Oh yeah. So actually, that was the topic I was going to bring up when we almost had no episode 2 weeks ago. The whole downfall of Polygon. Anyway, we can talk about that some other week.
Absolutely. Save it for next week.
They will still not be around in a week's time.
Let's jump back to beers then. We'll round out the episode. We'll finish up for this week. Who started? Oh, I started. Beak Floc, great beer. This is a fucking brilliant beer. Who knows what Threads 3 is like? Who knows the combination of the two is like? But this is a fucking great beer. The soft disco leisure reception from Verdant was also nice, but it's not the same level. It's an all right IPA. If you like a modern IPA, if you like something a bit more vegetal, a bit more earthy, a lot of stone kind of fruit, a lot of ripe stone fruit kind of in there, then you'll enjoy that Verdant beer. But that Beak and Floc is just that's really fucking good.
I will say Beak are probably one of my favourite.
Yeah, absolutely. Even just their standards, like Parade is such a good beer. Like, there's a bunch of stuff that they do. It's just so good. Lucy, Left-Handed Giant, run free.
Yeah, it grew on me. I think once you get over that initial wave of disappointment, you're just like, oh yeah, this is an alcohol-free beer, and it's not quite doing the thing to make me forget that it's an alcohol-free beer. Once you get over that wave of disappointment, it just grows on you. It started bringing in notes of like that citrus, a bit of pine, maybe a bit of cedar.
Nice.
And yeah, it just had weird vinous quality to it, like maybe less so the more I drank, but definitely had that like kind of weird rosé kind of taste to it, because I think of that kind of like sweetness as well, that slightly artificial sweetness that you get on alcohol-free beers. It's not as intense as most other alcohol-free beers, but yeah, it was certainly there. But it's okay. It's okay. It satiated me for the hour and a half or however long we've been doing this, and yeah, there's a category of alcohol-free beers where it's just like bad, average, and then just like these unicorns where it's like, oh, this is actually really good. This is just the average.
Fair, okay.
I'm not thrown into that pile.
Yeah.
Admittedly.
Which isn't bad.
No, not bad at all. Yeah. It's just another one which I will completely forget about. And that's it.
If every beer was memorable, your brain would be full of beer.
It already is.
More
just
beer.
Swimming in beer. My brain's swimming in it.
Oh, so as it should be. Aadil,
different types of beer. So again, I think this might be one of my favorite Vault Cities for a while. Primarily because start to finish tasted like a beer. I will say that like acrid, more heavy, stouty taste faded as predicted, but at the end it still tasted like a stout. It had these. So my one disappointment was that I think if you recall at the beginning, I was like, oh, there's like an actual quite interesting cacao sort of like note to this, and that is one of the things that disappeared, which, to the credit of trying to replicate being a crunch bar, is good, crunchy. But I really liked that, and so it became kind of just like more generic chocolatey. Again, not without the lactose, and I think they got the right balance of the honeycomb not being too sweet or too forward, since it was still very good beer tasting. I'm not going to list as a complaint this did not taste like a crunchy bar, because again, I think certain of their beers are better when they don't get perfect replication. I'm not sure. Like everyone, close your eyes. Now, imagine that someone took, say, a 4-pack. So the efficient way of buying crunchy bars at like a convenience store of crunchy bars, and they put it in your blender, and they added some liquid, oat milk,
Yeah, I was going
regular
to say
milk,
what kind of liquid.
water.
Yes.
Yeah, we can just do. Yeah. In fact, let's do this. It's water with Cadbury's hot chocolate milk powder, so it retains the taste profile of the bad chocolate.
Are you calling my cities? Well, it's no longer my cities.
Right. So then you blend this, and they hand it to you, and you take a small sip, and it tastes exactly like a crunchy bar, but it's liquid and as thin as a 15% viscous beer. Would you want a whole glass of that? No.
No, open my eyes. No.
Yeah, what if I close my eyes? Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, now what does that taste like? And then I realized we're like a million years over. But also, I really enjoyed that you both were entertaining me. So I was like, I'm gonna feed you the answer so that to negate the thought experiment. Because of course,
instead of like, if that liquid was like Bailey's and like I don't know,
right? Yeah,
bourbon.
Maybe that's kind of what I wanted to point out. Is like, there's a way of making the fundamental taste of crunchy, like, appetizing in a liquid drink form, and that is adding other flavors. So I'm glad they didn't try and perfectly replicate it, right? I just don't think it's the right type of flavor. It's too, kind of one note, great way that's great for a chocolate bar.
Yeah.
And so I'm really glad this tasted mostly like a stout, and then a bit like a crunch.
It's got a decent amount of honeycomb in it, though, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, yes, but again, the honeycomb isn't the foretaste. I guess that's the thing that actually tripped me up. Is I actually think the Cinder Stout double, the fancy version of New Bristol Brewery's Cinder Stout honeycomb stouty thing, whatever it was called, is more sweet honeycomb forward.
Yeah.
But I actually think this is a better beer because it's much more drinkable.
Yeah, because I haven't had crunchy in years, but what I remember is that yes, they are very sweet, so that would just become too cloying at a certain point.
So what I think is really great about this balance is, so real honeycomb has more of a honeycomb forward flavor. The last time I had a crunchy bar, I'm like, oh yeah, this is like having a bit of like crappy chocolate, and the honeycomb flavor, and a lot of the work is being done by the texture of the honeycomb. But it's not like it's not like a actual honey flavor, because it's however they make it, mass produced, whatever, right? And this actually does a good job of getting I think it's a richer honeycomb flavor than you get in the crunchy. But it's not trying to be more honeycomb than the chocolate bar is. The chocolate bars aren't very honeycomby. They're like, right? Nice. Yeah. So it's just a very good beer. It's one of those vault cities that, like, I would say, do you like imperial stouts? This will be a good beer. Versus a lot of the other ones, I'm like, do you like the thing that's written on the tin and the idea of drinking it? You'll probably like this, right? So this is one of those vault cities that I would recommend to someone who likes beer versus someone who wants a beer that doesn't taste like beer.
Okay.
Which I'm really glad that they're doing, because there was a chunk of time where I'm like, I like what you do, but every time I'm spoiled that I have access fairly regularly, and like, I just want a beer, man. I don't. Vault City, I know it'll be good. I know it'll taste good, but I feel bad for not ordering it. But I need a beer. So, like,
Yeah,
having
yeah.
more of these type things in the rotation would make me more consistently always go for the Vault City first, right? Because sometimes I don't. I'm happy for the non-beery taste, but like if I can hit Vault City for both, they've got good quality, right?
And yeah, maybe it's something I'm gonna have to start buying more because I just don't see Imperial Stags anywhere else.
Let alone at
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
mid-May, right?
Yeah. So maybe I pull me in. Pull me in.
Nice. Good. Well, they're games and they're beers. And that's what we've been up to for the last several weeks. And politics, yeah, lots of politics. It's good. It's good to get into it. Let the listener know what's going on in the world, or at least what we think is going on in the world. If you want to talk to us about what's going on in the world, come to our Discord and you can just chat to us on the daily or whenever you fancy. Hit one of us up to get a link to it. I'm Nova47 on Blue Sky. Aadil is
At the Omniarch.
and Lucy is
In the Discord.
that's the only internet place you're inhabiting at the moment.
Mainly, yeah.
Yeah, fair.
You've got a Substack, don't you?
Yeah, I haven't written on that for like maybe over a year.
Oh, okay. Well,
What is time? Yeah, I always get pop-ups saying someone followed you, and it's like, well, I don't know why.
Oh, we missed it.
Anything on. Yeah.
Call back to RSS readers. If you have an RSS reader, you can just add Lucy, and in the next 5 years, when there's 2 articles, you'll still see them.
That's absolutely true. That's very true. We are at
That's why
Tacticast.
RSS is so good.
Yes, very much.
Never miss a thing.
We are at Tacticast, not anywhere anymore, actually. Maybe on Instagram, but we don't post on there.
Right, because where are we on the Bisky?
Nothing on Blue Sky. Twitter's
'Cause we're just
gone.
live account.
Yep, it's just Instagram for Tanked Up. Out of lives everywhere else on Blue Sky. I say everywhere else on one other place. On YouTube as well, actually, to be fair. And go to outoflives.net to either see our faces, watch the video version, or look at other articles and things that go up.
So I'm just going to suggest a new slogan for us. The premier Out of Lives podcast.
It's very true.
Lucy's the only one who's on a different one. So I enjoyed that facial expression. If you're listening on the pod, go on the YouTube pod. This is just based on tenure and volume.
Right. Okay.
I have to look at stats. Did more people listen to the very sporadic out of Rupees episodes?
Yeah.
Because I know you and Francis kind of get together like once a month, maybe, roughly. If there's been like a direct or there's been like a...
Nowadays, yeah, like every 2 months, I think, 2-3 months, which is far more regular, yeah, than it used to be. I just like hearing talking about Nintendo because I have no idea what's going on around there. And
I mean, yeah, I'm you for this podcast.
Yeah.
I don't play games. I do drink beer.
Yeah.
Right?
Plus, it's nice just to catch up with friends.
Yeah.
Every show benefits from like an audience stand-in. I'm clearly the audience stand-in, he says, having gone on a fucking 35-minute rant about late-stage capitalism.
It's clearly what everyone was thinking that's listening to us.
Yeah.
So of course, it just hit just right. With that, thank you very much for joining us this week. We will be back next week. We have been Tanked Up. We shall see you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Ciao.
www.outoflives.net